The secret inside her, Lyra sat alone in her room, far from the noise of her alien city. The walls glowed with soft blue light, but inside her heart there was only fear. She placed her hand gently on her belly. It was small, still not too different, but she could feel something. A tiny movement, a heartbeat. It was real. It was alive, and it was not fully alien. She had not told anyone yet, not her mother, not her brother, not even her best friend. She knew what would happen if they found out. Her people did not accept humans. They saw humans as weak, dirty, and far below them. But Lyra had gone to Earth and she had learned the truth. Humans were not weak. They were kind. They were warm. And one of them had stolen her heart. Jason, just thinking his name made her eyes close and her lips tremble. She had met him during a mission. She was supposed to study Earth and report its progress. She was a soldier, trained and cold. But Jason had seen her differently. He had smiled at her when others feared her. He had given her food when she was hungry. And one night, when a storm broke the shelter, he held her close to keep her warm. Now, weeks later, she was no longer the same Lyra. Something inside her had changed. And not just her heart, her body too. She was pregnant. Her child was growing fast. Alien bodies were stronger, but the mix with human blood was strange. She did not know how the child would look. Would it have her glowing skin? Or Jason's warm, brown eyes? Would it be accepted or hated? She did not know. But one thing was sure, she could not hide this forever. There was a soft knock on her door. Lyra quickly moved her hand away from her belly. Her mother entered, holding a cup of herbal drink. "You look pale," she said, placing the cup on the table. "You haven't been eating well." "I'm just tired," Lyra whispered. Her mother looked at her for a long moment. Then she touched her forehead gently. "Your skin is colder than usual." "I'll be fine," Lyra replied quickly. "I just need rest." After her mother left, Lyra looked out of her window. The stars above her world blinked in silence. Somewhere out there, Jason was looking at the same stars. Did he miss her? Did he wonder about her? Did he know she was carrying his child? She wanted to tell him. She wanted to tell the world. But fear held her back. Her people were proud. They had strict rules. Love with other species was not allowed. Children from other bloodlines were forbidden. She had broken both rules. Every day she wore loose robes to hide her growing belly. She avoided doctors. She skipped training. Her brother had started asking questions. "Why do you walk slowly?" he asked one morning. "You're not weak, are you?" She laughed it off, but deep down she was scared. Soon someone would notice. And when they did, everything would fall apart. She walked to her desk and opened a drawer. Inside was a small metal tag, Jason's. He had given it to her the night she left. "To remember me," he said. She pressed it to her lips now, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "I remember," she whispered. Outside, the wind howled softly. Her world was peaceful, but her heart was not. She was torn between love and duty, between truth and safety. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run, back to Earth and fall into Jason's arms. But she was alone here. And now she had a new life to protect. She closed the drawer, wiped her face, and stood straight. She had to stay calm. She had to think. How long before someone found out? How long before her belly became too big to hide? Would they punish her? Would they take the child away? She would not let them. "I will protect you," she whispered to her unborn child. "No matter what." That night, she did not sleep. She sat near her window, watching the stars. Inside her, a new life moved again. And with each small movement, she felt stronger. She was scared, but she was also ready. This was her secret. For now. But soon, the truth would break free, and the world would never be the same again. Whispers around the walls. Lyra woke before the sun glow touched her city. Her eyes were heavy, but her mind had been awake all night. The fear of being found out was no longer a distant thought. It was getting closer every day. She had hoped to keep her secret longer, to protect the child growing inside her. But something was changing around her. People had started whispering. At breakfast, her mother barely touched her food. She kept glancing at Lyra's face, then her hands, then her belly. It was not obvious yet, but her mother could feel something. Alien mothers always could. When Lyra stood to leave the table, her mother reached for her wrist. "You're hiding something," she said softly. Lyra didn't answer. She just pulled her hand away gently and walked outside. But the outside wasn't safe either. At the training hall, she tried to keep up with the routines. Her body was strong, but she was careful now. Too careful. Her moves were slower, more protective. And others noticed. One of her fellow warriors, Vexa, leaned closer and asked, "Are you injured?" "No," Lyra said quickly. But the way Vexa looked at her, suspicious, curious, made Lyra's heart sink. She was losing her grip on the lie. It wouldn't take long now before someone put the pieces together. And worse, her brother had started asking questions too. That night, he entered her room without knocking. He had a paper in his hand, an Earth document. "I found this," he said. "It has your name written with human symbols, and this." He showed her a folded picture. Jason, smiling, standing beside her. A photo she thought she had hidden well. Lyra's heart stopped. She reached for the photo, but her brother held it back. "You care for him?" he asked. "A human?" She didn't answer. Her silence was enough. "You were always strange," he muttered, then walked out. Now it was only a matter of time. The next morning, her mother asked her to sit down. "You don't speak, you don't eat, you don't train. And your skin, it glows warmer than usual." "Lyra, are you—" Lyra stood up, her voice trembling. "I don't want to talk about it." But her mother would not stop. "Tell me now. What did you do on Earth? What happened to you there?" Lyra ran. She didn't wait to answer. She ran through the house, through the stone streets until she reached the edge of the forest. The wind was cold, but it helped her breathe. Her hand rested on her belly. The child moved again, stronger now. She looked up at the sky. Somewhere Jason was living a normal life, maybe working in his workshop, drinking coffee, listening to music. Did he even know she was carrying his child? Probably not. She had left without saying goodbye. She didn't want to break his heart, or hers. But now it was too late. The whispers had started. Her brother. Her mother. Vexa. Soon the whispers would spread beyond her home. And then the council would hear them. The council never forgave dishonor. Lyra closed her eyes and held her breath. She remembered Jason's voice. Soft and warm. "You're not just strong, you're kind, you're different from the others." But being different here was dangerous. She had only a few days left, maybe less. The secret inside her was becoming too big to hide. Her world was watching, judging, waiting. She had to decide, run, lie, or fight for what was hers. And time was running out. Earth changed. Everything Lyra was not always like this. Nervous, scared, hiding. There was a time she walked with pride, head high, a model soldier from one of the strongest alien families. When she was chosen to go to Earth, it was an honor. She was sent to study humans, observe their culture, and report their weaknesses. Her world believed humans were simple creatures driven by emotions and survival. But no one expected what Lyra found down there, not even her. She remembered her first steps on Earth. The air was thick and heavy, the ground soft and green. She hated it. The colors were too bright, and the noise never stopped. But worse than that, humans looked straight into her eyes like they weren't afraid, like she was just another person. And then she met him, Jason. He was an engineer working at the alien research outpost. While most humans kept their distance, Jason did not. He smiled. He asked questions. He offered her food she didn't understand. He didn't stare at her like a monster. He looked at her like someone who mattered. One evening, the outpost lost power after a storm. Lights failed. Communication lines broke. Lyra, unfamiliar with Earth's dangerous weather, was stuck outside, with no shelter. Jason found her shivering from the cold rain, her armor sparking. He didn't ask questions. He just grabbed her hand and pulled her into his tiny shelter. He lit a fire, wrapped her in a blanket, sat beside her, and that was the moment everything started to change. At first, they only talked. He told her about human life, his parents, his little sister, how he built machines with broken parts. She listened, pretending not to care. But inside, her walls began to crack. No one had spoken to her like this. No one had listened to her stories without fear or duty. Jason saw the person under the armor. Days turned into weeks. And with each passing day, the space between them grew smaller. Lyra would visit more often. She started laughing, a sound she hadn't made since childhood. She let her hair fall freely. She even tasted his strange food and smiled. She didn't tell him who she really was, just a researcher from another world, nothing more. But Jason didn't care about titles. He cared about her voice, her smile, the way she looked at the stars. One night they stood under Earth's moon. Lyra had never seen something so calm, so peaceful. Jason looked at her and said, "You don't belong to this place, but you don't seem like you belong anywhere else either." She turned to him and asked, "Would it be wrong to stay?" He didn't answer with words. That night they shared more than words. In the silence of the Earth's night, hearts spoke louder than voices, and two different beings from two different worlds became one. The next morning, Lyra was gone. She had left a note, but she couldn't stay. Her mission was over. Her duty called her back. And though her heart begged her to stay, her fear was stronger. She didn't even know if Jason would understand. She just hoped he'd remember her. Back on her world, everything looked the same. Cold halls, sharp lights, obedient faces. But inside her, everything had changed. She no longer felt like she belonged here. She carried something with her now, not just memories, but life. She was pregnant with a human's child. And that truth, no matter how beautiful to her, was a crime in her world. Now, as the memories filled her heart again, she stood alone in her room, staring at the photo she had once hidden. Jason, with his crooked smile and gentle eyes. She touched the glass frame. "You don't even know," she whispered, but he would. One day, he would know. And maybe, just maybe, he'd come back for her. When secrets refuse to stay hidden, truth never stays quiet for long. And Lyra's secret had started to breathe louder than her silence. Her body was no longer easy to hide. The robes that once flowed freely around her now clung tighter at her waist. Her steps were slower. Her balance was shifting. And her eyes. They no longer had the sharpness of a soldier. They had softened, filled with emotion. That alone was enough for suspicion to bloom. One evening, while walking through the palace garden, she stumbled. A soft gasp escaped her lips. Her hand flew to her stomach. Two nearby attendants saw it, and they didn't look away fast enough. Later that night, Lyra overheard them whispering in the corridors. "She's hiding something. Her scent has changed." Could it be pregnancy? The word hit her like a cold blade. By morning, her mother stood at her door with a stern face. "You will speak to the family council," she ordered. "Now." Lyra walked into the great chamber, her head high but her hands trembled. Her uncles and aunts sat on crystal chairs glowing in cold white light. Her brother stood beside her mother, arms folded, jaw tight. No one smiled. "We know something is wrong," her uncle began. "You've hidden your body, skipped medical checks and refused blood scans." "Why?" Lyra swallowed hard. She knew this was it. There was no hiding anymore. "I'm pregnant," she said. Her voice did not shake. Gasps echoed through the room. But that was not the worst part. "And the father?" her mother asked, though her face already showed she knew the answer. "A human," Lyra replied. The silence was louder than any scream. Her brother looked away. Her mother's lips tightened in disgust. "You have broken our oldest law," her aunt said. "A child with a human? You shame our bloodline." Lyra stood taller. "He didn't shame me. He respected me. More than anyone in this room ever has." The council erupted in voices. "Impure. Forbidden. Remove the child. She has betrayed us." But Lyra did not cry. She placed both hands on her belly and said calmly, "This child is mine. I will not let you touch him." Her mother stepped forward. "Then you leave us no choice. You are no longer part of this family." They stripped her of her soldier's badge. Her name was removed from the records. She was locked in a cold chamber called the Room of Reflection, a place where traitors were kept until judgment. Alone in the dark, she held her belly close. The baby kicked again as if trying to remind her, "You're not alone." She whispered, "They can call me anything, but I won't give you up." As the door shut and her world turned against her, Lyra closed her eyes. The pain was deep, but her love was deeper. Her truth had exploded like a star, and now nothing would ever be the same. Judgment Day was never meant for love. The chamber where they locked her had no windows, no warmth, and no sound, except for her breathing and the soft rhythm of her unborn child's heartbeat inside her. Days passed, maybe more. Time lost meaning in the cold. But Lyra never begged. She never cried out. She knew what they were trying to do, break her spirit, force her to choose duty over life. But they didn't know the strength of a mother. The council finally returned, faces colder than stone. They came not to speak, but to decide. The child must be removed, the elder declared. "We cannot allow a hybrid to be born under our sky." Lyra lifted her head. Her voice was quiet, but every word landed like thunder. "You can't stop what's already alive." They didn't argue with her. They ordered a medical removal. Guards approached. That's when something inside her snapped. With a strength she hadn't used since her training days, Lyra broke free from the restraints. Her movements were no longer soft. They were sharp, powerful, desperate. Not for her own life, but for the one inside her. She made it to the lower tunnels, spaces only old soldiers remembered. Her breathing was heavy, but her mind was sharp. She had no plan, just one mission: protect her child. She didn't expect to find help down there. A voice called softly from the shadows, "You're not safe here, princess." It was Kale, her old friend from training, once a rival, now her last hope. He had heard rumors, and though he didn't fully understand, he had seen the fear in her eyes. "You're carrying a human's child," he whispered. She nodded. "And I will die before I let them take him." Kyle didn't ask questions. He opened the hidden door behind the chamber wall, one that led outside the palace. "Go now," he said. "They'll hunt you." Lyra turned to him. "Thank you." As she escaped into the cold wilderness beyond the city walls, her heart was pounding, not just from fear, but from something else, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to hope for. Jason, she didn't know how. She didn't know when, but somehow she had to get a message to him, because if her world had declared war on her unborn child, only one man had ever made her feel safe. The human who loved her without fear would now have to become their protector, and time was running out. The human who walked into fire. The alien skies darkened the moment an Earthship broke through orbit. It was not a war vessel, not armed, not shielded, just a civilian shuttle, old and patched with metal from 3 different Earth models. But it didn't matter. Its presence alone sent panic through the high towers of Lyra's world. Unauthorized ships were rare. Human ones, unthinkable. But this one came boldly, flying straight toward the capital city, ignoring all warnings. In the palace, the High Council gathered in alarm. "It's him," one whispered. "The human. Jason." Word spread quickly through the airwaves and stone halls. Lyra, hiding in the outer wastelands beyond the city, heard it through a broken comm chip Kale had given her. Her hands shook. She had only sent a short, desperate signal a week ago. No promise it even reached him. But it had. He had come. The guards were waiting for him as he landed. They surrounded the ship, weapons raised. The door hissed open. Jason stepped out. No armor. No weapons. Just a backpack, a heartbeat, and a purpose. His face was tired, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. But they held fire. Fire only love could light. "I'm not here to fight," he said, raising his hands. "I'm here for her, for Lyra, and for our child." Gasps and growls rippled through the crowd. One guard barked, "Silence, human. You think you can walk in here and demand anything?" Jason didn't move. "I don't care what you allow. I didn't come for your permission. I came because they're mine, and I won't let you hurt them." The words hit like a shockwave. Inside the palace chambers, the council debated wildly. "He must be lying. He's here to start a war. This is human propaganda." But in the shadows, Kale smiled, because Jason hadn't come for war. He had come for something greater and more dangerous to their control: truth. Meanwhile, Lyra was on the move. Kale had guided her back through old tunnels to a safe chamber deep in the roots of the palace. The plan was simple: wait for nightfall, then escape to the outer docks. But the moment she heard Jason's voice echo through the speaker channels, her strength returned. She stepped out of hiding. A flash of light hit the sky as she entered the council chamber, dust and wind swirling around her. Her robes were torn, her feet bleeding, but her head was high. Her stomach was round, full of life and truth. All the council members turned to her in silence. And then Jason saw her. For a long second, the world froze. He stepped forward slowly, unsure. "Lyra." Her lips trembled. "You came." He reached her and dropped to his knees. He placed his hand on her belly, tears burning in his eyes. "I thought I lost you." Lyra covered his hand with hers. "You saved me." Again. The council shouted in fury, "This union is forbidden. This birth is illegal. You mock our laws." But Lyra stood taller. "Your laws are built on fear. This child is not a mistake. He is hope." The council leader pointed at Jason. "Remove him or face banishment." Jason met their eyes. "You already banished her for loving me. You don't get to scare us anymore." Suddenly, one counselor stood, an older woman with tired eyes. "Let the people see. Let them decide if this is truly wrong." And so they did. By midday, Lyra and Jason stood in the central city circle, their hands joined, surrounded by thousands. Some stared in horror. Others watched in silence. And some began to step forward, quietly, slowly. Mothers, fathers, children, aliens who had once hidden their feelings for off-worlders, workers who had admired humans in silence, scientists who had long doubted the council's strict codes. One by one, they came forward. A girl with green eyes whispered, "He loves her." "That's more than I've ever seen from our own people." An old warrior growled, "Let them be. We fought wars to have peace, and now we're punishing peace itself?" The council could not stop the shift. For the first time in generations, something powerful spread across the city: empathy. That night, Lyra and Jason were given a small home at the city's edge. Not royal, not large, but safe. And in the early hours of dawn, with no doctors, no machines, just Jason's hands and her strength, Lyra gave birth. Their son was born with her sharp silver eyes, and Jason's smile. When the child cried, It wasn't loud or angry, it was strong, like a voice meant to be heard. Jason held him close and whispered, "Welcome to the stars, little one." Lyra leaned against him, her voice soft. "He's the first of something new." Jason looked at her and smiled. Not the last. For now, they had peace. But the galaxy had just started listening, and the story of the human who walked into fire for love was only beginning. Born of two worlds, he will change them all. The child was barely a week old, yet whispers of his birth had already crossed star systems. Lyra named him Orin, a name that meant light between worlds in her native tongue. Jason simply called him our little miracle. But to the galaxy, Orin was something far more dangerous and far more powerful. He was proof that love could break ancient laws, that bloodlines could mix, that the stories the old ones told about humans being beneath them were nothing more than fear dressed as pride. Every day, new faces came to see him. Soldiers who once guarded the palace now bowed gently and left fruit outside their door. Scientists requested samples, not to harm but to understand. Young couples, forbidden to love beings from other worlds, now dared to dream aloud again. Still, not everyone accepted the change. The High Council, though silent after the city's support, had not forgotten. They called it the mistake of the millennium. Quietly, they began to build fear again, spreading lies across nearby colonies. The child has unstable DNA. He will bring disease, confusion, rebellion. Lyra knew this was coming. She had been a soldier of that very system. She knew fear always fights hardest just before it dies. So she and Jason made a choice. They would not hide. They brought Orin to the central temple, once a place for only pureblood royals, and stood before the people. Jason held Orin, and Lyra stepped forward. "You've known me as a warrior," she said. "You've called me daughter of generals, keeper of law. But today, I come only as a mother. And I ask you, if this child cries, is his pain less? If he laughs, is his joy unworthy? If he lives, is he less alive than any of us?" Silence followed. Then one voice from the back answered, trembling but clear. "He's beautiful." More voices followed, then cheers. Then applause. It wasn't just support, it was unity. From there, the waves spread. On a nearby moon, a human-alien couple stepped forward and registered their child openly. A military captain resigned from his post, stating, "I was trained to hate, but hate never held a child in its arms." A trade colony lifted bans on Earth goods, calling humans honored guests. But perhaps most surprising of all, an old council member came to Lyra's door one evening, her hands empty, her head bowed. "I voted against you," she whispered. "I believed the stories. But when I saw that child in your arms, I remembered, my own daughter, and I felt shame." Lyra didn't respond with anger. She opened the door wider. "Then come meet him," she said. The galaxy was not changed by weapons, nor by laws. It was changed by a child's laughter in a quiet home. Still, danger never vanished completely. One night, Jason was out gathering supplies when a shadow slipped into their home. Lyra, holding Orin, felt it before she saw it. A presence, a threat. She turned fast, but the stranger did not attack. He wore black robes and had eyes like molten stone. He looked not at her, but at Orin. "So it is true," he said slowly. "A hybrid lives." Lyra stepped in front of her son. "If you came to hurt him, you'll leave in pieces." The man raised a hand. "No, I came because I was sent to kill you. But I can't. I was wrong." He smiled at me. Then he disappeared. Even the most loyal tools of hate could not resist Orin's presence. As months passed, Orin grew faster than expected. He walked early, spoke both languages, understood feelings before they were spoken. There was something ancient in his eyes, like the universe whispered to him in silence. Scientists began calling him the bridge child, but Lyra just called him my heart. One day, as he sat with Jason under the starlight, Oren pointed upward and asked, "What's that one?" Jason followed his finger. "That's Earth, little star. Can we go there?" Jason smiled. Someday. And someday came sooner than expected. A new council had formed, one with voices from many worlds, not just one. They invited Lyra and Jason to Earth to speak at the first Union gathering. It was the first time in history that humans and aliens would meet as equals. Because of Oren. The moment their ship landed on Earth, the world erupted in cheers. Humans lined the streets. Banners flew high. Children held signs with Oren's name. He looked out the window, wide-eyed. "They're happy," he said. Jason nodded. They waited a long time for this. Inside the hall, Lyra took the stage. She looked down at her child, then at the crowd. Oren was born because two people saw each other not as species, but as souls. If he can grow up in a world that sees no enemy in a face, only another heart, then we have already won. That day, the first Union Treaty was signed, with Oren's tiny handprint stamped beside it in ink. Years later, statues would rise, not of warriors, not of kings, but of a mother, a father, and the child who showed the stars what it meant to be. More than just alien or human, to be loved, to be light, to be the beginning of peace.